Welcome, welcome to the Elokus podcast. This is going to be class number 4 in the discourse Zeus Chukas 5672, which is the 7th discourse in the overall book B'Shasha Ekdimu. This is going to be class number 3 in chapter 26 of the overall book, chapter 26. Okay, there's been a little break since we learned last. We had the holiday of Shavuos and a busy time, so let's get right back into it. And we're only in the middle of the chapter over here. And we have been learning as follows. The idea that we were developing last is that when one has a when there is a general light, when we unscrabble letters, obviously we take a letter and we single it out, or separate it from the rest of a word, and then from the sentence, and so on and so forth, and then we lose a tremendous amount. It's an incredible diminishment of the energy that's within that letter, of the content that's in that letter. You're left only with the content of the letter itself, whatever the letter means, a letter B or the letter C or the letter Aleph, Beis, Gimel. When it was part of something much bigger, it had the meaning of the word. Now, since, however, this letter was once part of the word, one can argue that there is a little crumb of the general idea that was once there, is still contained over there, because it was once touched by a bigger idea that was within the word. But in addition to that, we learn, and that's the concept that he was trying to explain, what happens to the 10 hidden spheros that are all together as one idea, embedded in the infinite light, and when there is the tzimtzum. And he wants to explain that the tzimtzum that affects the 10 hidden spheros, the 10 hidden attributes, are in a bederech miyut, as in a manner of diminishment. It's not siluk, it's not removal completely. It's an incredible downgrading, but it's not you taking away everything, you're just diminishing. Because the point over here was, it's the very same letter that was once part of the bigger word that has now the base of the word baruch is the very same letter that was part of the word baruch, which means a blessing. It's just that you pluck it from the rest of it, you separate it, you pull it off the tree. Now it's just this individual piece. You don't see all of that light. But it's the same letter, but yet it's a whole different story. And that, to that degree, is explaining how the lights, once the Esespheros Hagenuzos were affected by the Tzimtzum, and that kind of fragmented the letters, and each sphera comes out, emerges, and you start noticing each sphera on its own, and it's separated from the rest of it, you lose all that infinity that was once present. But in this particular chapter, he's adding more than that there is a higher power that is also lost. And he brings what it says in Tanya, that there is a koyach kloli, that in addition to the individual meaning of letters, when letters come together to form a word, there is a certain word, the meaning of the word. But in addition to that, this is the author, the Rebbe Rashab. He's deriving this from what it says in Tanya, that it seems like the Alter. He doesn't say it seems. He says it's definite that the Alter Rebbe is saying over here something more than just the meaning of the word. He's referring to something more than the meaning of the word. And what is that? So this was discussed in the last few classes. Just doing a quick review. That in order to be able to combine letters to make words, there is a special superconscious power within the soul that delivers the combinations of letters to every person so that they can articulate their ideas in words. And that idea and that power is higher than the power of the intelligence itself. It's not the intelligence that brings the intelligence of the idea itself that organizes the right words to be able to express itself. And the idea that but rather a power higher than the intelligence, as we're going to see today, it's more of the essence of the intelligence itself. It's not the revealed intelligence. It goes to the very, very, very essence of the intelligence, and maybe even to the essence of the soul itself, in where the combiner of letters comes from. And that power is present only, obviously, when you have a combination of letters. When you're spitting out only one letter at a time, then that power, the combiner of letters, which is such a high, lofty level, is not there. And this is where he's trying to explain that in addition to the 10 hidden sfirot that were all unified together and they had a certain concept that was contained in all of them together, the concept of the idea of the entire structure of the cosmos, like we discussed earlier, there is something even higher present in the 10 hidden spheros when they were still in their source, before they became before they emerged, is that the Or Ein Sof that is even higher than the 10 hidden spheros. The Or Klali, the general infinite light, the level that we discussed earlier is called Spheros Ein Kates. The inner dimension of Or Ein Sof, that too was present. And the moment you take the letters and you fragment them, you separate them, not only do you lose the meaning of the word, but you also lose touch with that power of the soul that is such a deep power of the soul that combines letters. And by God, it would mean that the Or Ein Sof itself kind of is removed completely when through this power of tzimtzum that differentiates the letters. This is kind of what we were learning. And in order to further illustrate the idea that the koach hametzaref, the power that combines the letters in a person, is coming from such a deep place, he brings the example of the idea that you find that people use different words, even though they convey the same idea. Every teacher or every communicator will use different words for the same idea, and that is not explainable based on the knowledge. That has to do more with who the person is in essence than their intelligence. Because if it would only be the intelligence, then most people who share the same idea should at least be using the same choice of words. And yet you can have so many people with the same idea and everybody's using different words for the same concept. That's because there is something there more than we learned. The last thing he explained was that the power of the intelligence that's revealing itself, that's being that is the power of the intelligence that is contained, the idea itself that is contained in the words, what we might call the Or Pnimi, the internal light that is contained within the words. That is the power of Bina of the soul. It's the Bina of the soul. Bina means understanding. But the power to combine the letters is from the Chachma. And Chachma over here does not even mean the beginning of the idea. It means pre-beginning of the idea. It's like the power that's completely super conscious. And from there is where the power to combine the letters come from. And the proof, and one proof we spoke about, people have different ways of expressing ideas, different words. And also we spoke that children who don't have, even though they have Bina, they have an understanding, small infants, they have somewhat of a level of understanding, yet they can't combine letters. And that's because this higher power is not manifesting yet till they get a little older. That was the last thing we learned in the last class. And now we're going to continue. I am Chukas. And now he challenges this for a moment. This is a parenthesis. This is on page Membeis. Again, I'm using the copy of Bishosha Egdim, with a copy of the book that is 3 volumes, 3 big blue volumes. And on that print, this is on page Membeis. Again, it's the middle of chapter 26, just smack in the middle of the chapter. I'm Ashuk for those who are using maybe different copies or different versions of the print. I'm Ashuk Kasal the Kamam Perek Kuf Memvav. He says, check out what it says in chapter 146, where there he seems to be implying that the power to combine letters is actually from a lower place. So he's now challenging himself from what he says later, but he's going to resolve it. And he's going to explain that we're dealing with 2 different aspects, as we're going to see in a moment. Later, he says in chapter 146 that that the ability to combine letters, why they moichin the yanika, comes from that which is transmitted to a child of yanika. Yanika means the nursing period. There is what's called in Kabbalah, there is what's called ibor. Ibor is a certain amount of development that a fetus is developed while it's still impregnated. It's still in the fetus. And then once the fetus is born, and now it's a child, that starts the nursing period. So we know that a child, just about when they end their nursing period, according to Torah, the nursing period of a baby is till 2 years old, 24 months. Usually children can kind of start talking at that conclusion of that age, at 20 months, 18 months, they start verbalizing, start saying words. So that's spiritually as well, because it has to do with the moich and the yanika. There's a certain development of the mind that comes from nursing. Now, based, however, on what we said earlier, now nursing is more receiving the mochen of the mother. It's the mother's milk, which the mother is bina. We just said that the power to combine letters is really more an advanced power. And it's more related to, he brought earlier that a person is only allowed to sell in his father's properties when he's 20 years old, a certain maturity of the mind. Now, it doesn't mean people can't talk before, but really probably what he means is that the richness of speech that a person can articulate and be able to really put things out takes a greater maturity of the mind, which happens later in life. And you see with age, a lot of talents become better, but with age, especially speaking abilities, generally becomes more of a speaker when they're at the past their teens. It has to do with a certain mochen, a higher mochen. But didn't he say earlier that the starfus mochen comes from the mochen of yanika, which is a much lower level? It's more of a bina element than a chachma element. So that's why he's now differentiating, and he's saying we're talking about two different things. What he means over there is to say when a person has enough of a developed mind that they're able to bring an idea down into a pnimius, into an internalized state, then one is able to limit the idea in 2 words. What it means is as follows. There's different ways. See, the process of perceiving or of conceiving concepts, conceiving ideas, happens as follows. First, as it says in chapter 4 in Tanya and chapter 5 in Tanya, when you're trying to conceive an idea, the idea is hovering over your head. I'm sure many times it happens when you're listening to these classes. These are very, very deep classes. And in the beginning, when you're listening to it, sometimes we might have to listen to this once or twice or 3 times. And I do the same as I'm trying to read these words. I have to read it once and twice and 3 times as I'm trying to figure out what the Rebbe is saying. And what that means is that in the beginning, even if you're beginning to get something, you get a vague idea of what is being said. The concept, the idea is hovering over your mind. You're not really grasping it. You don't feel that, I have it. You can feel it now. There's a time when you're reading words and it's absolutely meaningless. It doesn't even, then we can't call it even makif. We can't even call it encompassing because it's just you have no connection to it. But an encompassing light means when something is encompassing your mind means you have a vague grasp on it, but you don't really have it. And then, but when it says over there, when you bring it into an orpnimi, which means when you take the idea from your chachma, from your power of chachma, and you bring it into bina, which bina means it's the analytical side of the mind where you really can define it, the concept, you really grasp it in your mental faculties. You're really chewing on it. You're digesting it in your mind. That's the bina, and then a person is able to explain it. One of the proofs, if you've really understood something or not, is if you're able to give it over to others. As long as you have an idea that you can't give over to others, it's a sign you don't really understand it. It's a common idea that is discussed in the Talmudic world, that until you cannot teach the passage of the Talmud, you can't teach the Tosfos, you can't teach the Rashi. It's a asset. So there is a statement now. Remembering my father would always say it to me, and from his Rosh Hashivas, as felt in hasbara, felt in havana. If you're lacking in the ability to convey something, it means that you're not understanding. So it would seem to imply the total opposite of what we're learning now, that the ability to be able to put something into words comes from really grasping, which means internalizing an idea, which means the conceived, it has to do with conception. It's more of a bina element than a chachma element. What are we learning over here? That the ability to combine letters and words is coming from the most remote and removed superconscious power. It's coming from above our consciousness. It's coming from the ultimate makif of our neshama. Makif meaning the levels of soul that are completely beyond what we're not controlling, that is above our conscious mind. It's coming from like a mysterious place in us that combines letters. And we said that level only matures when you reach the age of 20, and that's when you open up the passageway to such a high level of soul. But here we're saying total opposite. It's precisely when an idea settles in the person that you have the ability to speak, which means the more you internalize it into vessels, then you can talk. So which one is it? So he's saying both are true. We're talking about two different things. You have someone who is an articulator. You have a person who knows how to speak. There's no question in their talk. They are a very good teacher. They're a very good articulator. They're excellent in giving over ideas. Yet when they learn something new, a new idea, they can't explain it. Why can't they explain it? Because they themselves don't understand it. And what's the problem? So give over what the vague. Here's the thing. Since in order to put something into words means you have to be able to limit it. You can't spray someone with an infinite energy. It doesn't work. You're not communicating anything. That's why people that are very, 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 very intensely excited about certain ideas, and they feel like just because they're so excited about it, everybody has to accept it. It doesn't work that way. In Chassidus, it's called Eris Tetoyu, the lights of Toh. You shout loud. You shout from the rooftops and you're screaming what you believe in. Doesn't necessarily mean that you're communicating with anybody. You're just shouting. To communicate means you have to be able to package something. You have to be able to bring it down. You have to be able to develop it. That means you have to be able to limit it. Limit it to the vessels and to the capacity of the recipient. In order to limit something, you first need to understand it and internalize it in your own bina. If you don't have an understanding, even if you have somewhat the idea, but the idea is too limitless, and therefore you don't have the ability to put it into a package. You're not able to condense it. That's what it is. The ability of speaking is condensing something into words. So for that ability to do that, you need to be able to bring the idea into your bina, fully assimilate and understand it, and then you can put it into words. So we're not talking about the essential quality of a speaker. We're not talking about the essential quality of a teacher. We're talking about each particular idea. In order for it to be able to be communicatable, needs to be chopped into pieces. And where do you chop something into pieces? In your bina. Your bina takes an idea, breaks it down into, digests it. What is digesting? What's the digestion process? A person has, in the digestion, you have all kinds of acids and all kinds of what we call, what are they? The various different components that are in the stomach that are able to break down food and then make it part of the body. That's the thing. You have to first to be able to assimilate something. You have to break it into smaller pieces. You have to literally break it down. So the same is with the mind. The mind has to break something down. You break it down in your bina. Then it's broken down at the bite-sized pieces. You can put it into words. And once you put it into words, then you can give it over. But here we're talking about something else. Not the ability to take the idea and to communicate it, but rather the choice of words that are being used. Let's say you have already the ability. You do. You understood it. Now, how come 5 people that understood it? How come 3 teachers who understood Rashi, Tosfos, and the Rashba, or Tosfos, the Rashba, and the Ran, all understood? These are great commentaries on the Talmud. All of them understood the same idea, and yet each one uses different words. That's a super intelligent power coming from the Chachma Shebenefesh. Or we might say that itself, that a teacher is blessed to be a teacher. A lot of people understand things really well, and they just don't have communication skills. That's because for whatever reason, this koach, this high, even though they understand their bina is good, but they just don't have teaching ability. Some people are just not good teachers. They're brilliant people, but they don't have ability to teach. Other people may not be as brilliant, but they do have skills of teaching. That's because this particular power of the nefesh is present by those individuals. Now, even someone who has a very good articulation abilities still needs to understand the concept in order to be able to use that ability that they have that's coming from Chachma. They now need to be able to fit the idea into those letters, and that is because by being able to constrict the concepts. And how do you constrict it? By understanding in your bina. So there's two different worlds. There is a factory that produces words. That factory is not Bina. That factory is Chachma. It's a power of Chachma. It's a power of the superconscious. It's a very high power. That's the production line of words. But then there is the ability to prepare an idea to put it into words. You have to do two things. You have to have the words, and then you have to have the adjustment of a concept to be able to adjust and limit a concept to put it into words. That kind of like you have a florist who takes flowers, and you have to, maybe I'm thinking about it because of Shavuos. You trim the flowers so they should fit into the vase. You have to know how to cut it. You have to know a way to cut it. So a person has to also have the ability to trim an idea down to its essentials, to organize it really well in their own mind, so then they can fit it into words. For that is what he says in chapter 146, further in the time. For that, it's the moichen the yanika. It's a certain skill of the intelligence that gives a person the ability to the bina element, to be able to have control on a concept, to be able to trim it down so that now the concept is now suitable to be able to put into words. But if the person is not a wordy person, if they don't have words, if that other factory that's producing word doesn't work for them, then even with the best understanding, they're not going to have words. So it's a separate power that he's talking about over here. That power is a power from Chachma. That's what he's differentiating over here. Again, over there, what he means over there, only when the seichel, when the intelligence comes down in an or pnim, an internal way, then you're able to limit the seichel into words, combinations of words. When the person himself has the idea only in a hovering manner, in an encompassing manner, then you can't do it. And that particular power is called Chachma Shebedibur. Is the Chachma of Dibur, is the ability to limit the shleimus of the intelligence that brings to Dibur is to be able to trim an idea and to make it suitable to go into words. However, that's what he's speaking about over there. But the Inyan Siraf Amavur Khan, this that he's talking about, combining of letters that he's talking about over here, is this that a person is revealing, and after you understand it already, it's a whole different procedure. The letter selection, the word selection, which is made up of letters, the letters that organize themselves to become the words and the sentences that one will transmit that idea. Or maybe say Indian, and he brings the idea about oisiyos and letters v'tzerufim elu davka, and precisely within these combinations, v'loy b'tzerufim achedim, not in other combinations. Shazehu davka. This is not a bina faculty. It's not the better you understanding. This has this is a skill, a separate skill that's emanating from a very transcendental type of a power that a person is not even consciously working. It's a gift from above. It's mepchinas moichen the Abba. It's a from the mochen. It's from the intelligent powers of Abba, of Chachma. Again, not from the internalized power of intelligence, but from the more removed powers of intelligence. Shalamayla ma'asaga, that is above understanding. And that's actually coming from the highest power of the soul. It's interesting. Usually Chachma, we say, is the Chaya Shebenefesh. Here it seems like within Chachma itself, the deepest element of Chachma, it's like close to the Etzem HaNefesh, to the essence of soul, which he's going to say in a moment, from where letters are produced. The letters themselves, just even individual letters themselves come from the very essence of the soul, and the same is also the power to combine letters. Okay, that's the end of the parentheses. So till now we were just differentiating between a person, the power of bina that is involved in word production, but that's not so much regarding the words themselves, but rather the conditioning of the idea that you should be able to put it into words. That's that. Versus the actual pulling forth of words and letters to be able to teach something and give over words, that's a power of Chacham. Now we're going back to his, once that parenthetical idea has been cleared, he's going now back to the general idea to explain how the power that combines, that gives a person words, is a very, very sublime high power in the soul. So he brought the example that you see that a child cannot teach. Cannot speak. And that's because this production is not opened by a child. Now he's going to say that even adults can sometimes struggle if they don't have if this particular power of their soul is not that strong. Everybody's different talents. So people that are artists and they can do different types of arts, but they can't speak. And others are very good speakers and orators, and that's because this particular power of their nefesh is very, very developed. And again, it's not necessarily a skill that they've done. It just has to do with the type of soul that they have, I guess. I guess you can work in it as well. But now he's going to prove to that. We see even adults, when a teacher is teaching an idea, to a student. So here's one of the things that we see the teachers do, is they always need to constantly readapt words. You give over an idea, and you kind of feel, you got a sense from your students how they're getting it. And when you see that they're struggling, what does a good teacher do? He says, you know what, in other words. And they rearrange the letters. And that's a skill. And every good teacher has to be able to do that quite a few times, especially if they're teaching deep ideas. You have to be able to put ideas into other words. And where is that coming from? That's coming from, as he's going to explain, the very essence from where the ideas are coming from. Gives the richness of words to be able to put an idea into different formations. In a vadai, definitely, first of all, the teacher cannot give over to the student the concept the way it is by himself or herself. But with their own letters, because those letters that the teacher uses to understand the idea on their own might be too lofty and too rich and too intense for the students. Because the student has got a minor intelligence. From to receive this great intellect, the great idea, as the concept and as the ideas by the teacher. And therefore, the teacher it requires lahalbish to dress and to contract the intelligence and to put it into different words, according to the capacity of the student. Like we see literally. Whenever a teacher is teaching concepts and ideas, any intellectual communication to someone else, you have to change the words from the way you understand it. A person who wants to hold on to the words that they understand and then convey it usually has a hard time communicating. The ability to communicate is to be able to dress and undress very quickly. Ideas need to be able to be dressed up and presented. And that presentation is presenting it through the words. It's a very incredible, a very special thing. This is a very high power. The power to present an idea in different words than you understand it on your own is even higher than the power to innovate. The creativity to create the idea is one level of emanation of the soul, the emanation of the creative mind, to produce, to have haskalah, to have concepts and ideas, but the ability then to be able to change the words and present it in the right in a manner that a student or a recipient, an audience should be able to relate to it, requires a koach that's even higher than the creativity of the mind itself. And this is the reason, not everybody that can understand ideas to themselves is able to give it over to others. Even if this person himself was the one who brainstormed the idea. And for themselves, they understand it. They really, really understand it. But to be able to communicate it to someone else, they're not able to. And the reason for that is they just don't have words. Because because they don't find the letters, vitzerufim, and combinations, to be able to bring the idea to someone else. And the reason is, because the combination of letters, they are emanating, they are coming from, they come from the very, very abstract of the idea. That means the koach hayuli of seichel. It's not even the idea, it's beyond the idea. It's the power of intelligence in its most undefined state. That's what hayuli means. Hayuli means before something becomes defined with definitions, in its very most essential state, as it is in its essence. That's called koach hayuli. Pnimius, which is the innermost, even higher than the production, the mind's ability to produce ideas. There is the mind's ability to produce ideas, which is already the mind, the power of the mind, as the mind is already being it's being mindy, it's being, it has already that. You can see within the mind that it is a source for ideas. But then the mind itself, before it is a mind for ideas, a production of ideas, in its most essential state, from that place is where the letters and the words are produced. And if you go even deeper than that, not only is it koyach ha'hiyuli of seichel, the power of the very abstract power of the seichel, in its roots, it's from the very essence of the soul itself. Even higher than the mind. He said it's the highest, deepest point of the mind. But now he's going even deeper than that. It's from the essence of the soul itself. And that idea, let's leave for the next class, where he explains that in general, the production of letters come from the soul itself. And therefore, also the power to combine letters comes from the soul itself. But let's leave that for the final class of chapter 26, Bezrat Hashem.